How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're going to be checking out a Not Just Bikes video. We have this video here. Even small towns are great here. 5 years in the Netherlands. So if you're not familiar with the Not Just Bikes channel, which I'm assuming a lot of you guys are, but anyways, he's a Canadian guy that moved to the Netherlands. So then he started doing videos that compares the two, highlighting the infrastructure of the Netherlands and like the benefits of like the cycling centric lifestyle, and like just the walkability of the cities and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, this video here was posted a year ago, and I never reacted to it yet, and it was recommended to me in the comment section by one of you awesome viewers, so shout out to whoever that was. And we're gonna jump into it. We're gonna check this out. Do me a favor, guys, hit like and hit subscribe. It helps the channel, and I appreciate it a lot. So yeah, let's watch this.
We've lived in the Netherlands for 5 years now, and during that time we've been to many different cities and towns. Now, obviously I talk about Amsterdam a lot on this channel because that's the city I live in, but I routinely show clips from other places that I've been to in the country. A lot of the time, I didn't go to these places specifically to film them. They were just some of the places I had to go because I was going to an appointment or visiting friends or just living my life. And while I grabbed a few video clips here and there, I never collected enough footage to make a complete video about any of these places, especially in the early days. But a lot of these places are really interesting, and I think you'll find them interesting too, because one of the things that really honestly just blew me away after moving to the Netherlands is just how good things are pretty much everywhere.
That's what I hear.
When we got to the Netherlands, we tried to get out of the city as much as possible to get to know our new country. Before I had a YouTube channel, I used to take photos or videos of things I found interesting, and it's really funny to look back on a lot of what I thought was worth filming. Most of these videos are too short as they were never meant to be posted to YouTube, so you'll have to excuse me if I have to loop some of them. So anyway, let's begin.
All right, cool. So it's just, and I know how that is too, because I've tried so many times to, like, I want to do videos in real life of like stuff, like I wanted to do an infrastructure video, so I got so much footage of like sidewalks or lack of sidewalks, right? Craters in the ground in the middle of sidewalks and walking areas, and I wanted to showcase the differences between here in the United States or whatever, right? Versus Europe and the Netherlands and stuff. And I just never done anything with the footage. I think I lost it at this point, actually. But yeah, so I completely understand where he's coming from. Like, he's like, in the early days and all this footage, I get it. Yep. I've done the same thing. And like Holland, Michigan, so much footage that I just took for no reason, never used it for anything. Maybe I have it somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, if so, maybe I'll do something with it one day. You never know. But you know what? You have to hit that notification bell and subscribe and all that stuff to see it, right? If I do. I don't know if I will, but whatever, right?
We have visited the city of Haarlem several times, both before moving to the Netherlands and after, as it's an easy trip from Amsterdam by train.
I hear it's
Visiting
nice.
Haarlem for the first time was a really eye-opening experience for me, as it was the first time I realized that even a city of about 160,000 people could be really active and lively, and I talked about that in the very first video on this channel. My hometown has over 3 times the population, and you'd need a 50-car pileup to see this many people outside of their cars at one time.
Yeah, right.
This is entirely because of the design of Haarlem and its pedestrianized city center. I took our kids to Leiden to visit the Natural History Museum, again, trivially easy to access by train and a short walk. This is literally the only video I took of Leiden, this crosswalk.
That's it.
This amazed me because it was such a safe crossing, where the street was narrowed with this big pedestrian island. Oh, okay. I was clearly easily impressed in those early days, but seriously, this would not exist in any city this size in Canada, and that's really sad, right?
Or United States.
I did a similar thing in the town of Harlingen, where the only video I took was...
Is that Friesland? This one.
again, of a safe crosswalk.
The
In this
only
case,
video.
the crossing is raised to slow down drivers. If you live in Canada, you have to get all your neighbors together and fight for years to get something like this installed, but in the Netherlands, they're just all over the place and usually installed by default. For a while, we
crazy.
were attending some speed cubing competitions. This meant that we had to travel to some very random places in the Netherlands. This is Lent, which is
I actually did a Rubik's Cube thing off topic, but since they showed it in the video, I'm just going to tell you about it because I'm proud of it. I solved it with the help of the internet, of course, but you know what? I did it. I did it. Took forever still.
basically a suburb of Nijmegen. We hadn't been in the Netherlands for long at this point, so everything was new to us. I remember
Nijmegen, that place, I think, maybe I'm wrong, I think it's the oldest city in the Netherlands. I think. And it's really super cool. I got some videos about it. You should check it out.
it being so amazing that we could so easily take a train to the other side of the country, and when we got there, it was safe for our whole family, including our kids, to cycle by themselves to the neighboring town. There was also this separated bicycle path that I remember thinking was really high quality, especially in such a small city. This bridge was really cool too, and it was interesting how they cut through this old tower to build this bicycle path. I remember thinking that only the Netherlands would care enough about bicycle.
I don't think they cut through it. I have a feeling it was designed that way. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was designed this way for a way for them to get products either inside or outside of the building.
Interesting how they cut through this old tower to...
I just have that feeling that it was just designed that way. Kind of like rail cars and trains and stuff nowadays carrying stuff. They would go under and then they would load the product over the top, you know, from the building or whatever. I don't know. Let me know about this.
Build this bicycle path. I remember thinking that only the Netherlands would care enough about bicycle infrastructure to do this. The other fascinating...
And they had a thing hanging off of it. Where's it at? Look at the front.
...tower to build this bicycle path. I remember thinking that only the Netherlands...
See this giant arm sticking out? Yeah, that kind of lends to the idea that I was talking about. I'm sure that this arm would have something to do with something. They would hoist something off of it. I mean, there's a groove in the top of it, like there was a pulley or something there to lift stuff out of some. I don't know.
...would care enough about bicycle infrastructure to do this. The other fascinating thing about Lent was that it felt very suburban with lots of single-family homes, but it was still perfectly safe to cycle through, and there were so many families out on bicycles. These kind of suburban streets cut off to through traffic by cars are ideal routes for cycling without having to build any dedicated cycling infrastructure at all. There are no bike lanes needed here because the speed and volume of cars was so low. Suburban streets lined with single-family homes but still safe for cycling just absolutely blew our minds.
Yeah, and it would mine too, really. I mean, had I not been watching all these videos and learning and stuff, but yeah, it's not like that here. And he references to Canada, but Canada and the United States is set up very similar when it comes to the infrastructure and like you know, all that kind of stuff. It's so close.
Another speed cubing competition was in Ermelo. Again, our destination in this small town was easily accessible by train plus bicycle. What amazed me was that a town this small, 27,000 people, would have so many trains going to it, and with a ridiculous amount of bicycles parked out front. The other thing that surprised me was the traffic.
If there was a speed cube competition going on, though, that might explain why so many trains were coming in. You know, they were coming in for that. But unless he's talking about like trains are just coming in, like they're just accessible from all these other places in the country. They have direct routes to this place. Maybe, I'm not quite sure.
Traffic coming. That's the infrastructure that's used to slow and restrict car traffic. So many streets were cut off to car traffic, and again, it was easy to cycle everywhere without any dedicated cycling infrastructure. I talked about this in one of my very early videos about traffic calming on this channel. This one little town had more traffic calming measures than I've seen in literally any city of any size in Canada.
I personally kind of feel like trying to drive to a place like that might be a nightmare for somebody like for me, not for, you guys you're used to it. Somebody like me coming from America, United States, whatever you want to call it, going over there and not being used to stuff, because here we can drive wherever. If there's a road, we can pretty much drive there, unless, there'll be a sign that tells you specifically, like, you cannot go through this section normally, right? But when it comes to like in a city and stuff, if I go over there, that would be a nightmare for me, not being used to the place and not knowing where I can drive, where I can't drive, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and I feel like that's definitely where like learning Dutch would come in handy for anybody going to the Netherlands, whether, like if you're going to move there, for instance, right? Because then it's like you can actually read the street signs and all that kind of stuff. Then, it would just make everything make more sense, right?
And when it comes to small towns in Canada, they're all extremely car-centric. They are legitimately terrible places to be, despite...
Yeah, and again, this looks exactly like United States. There's no difference in like the way that when you're driving around and like it looks the same.
Them being small enough to easily cycle from one end to the other. So being in a small town that wasn't lined with strip malls and overrun by cars was just incredible.
And it looks cool.
It really became clear to me that to make a place friendly for cycling, it was more important to restrict cars than it was to build a bunch of expensive bicycle infrastructure. After all, protected bike lanes are really just an extension of car infrastructure, right? You don't need bike paths if you don't have a lot of cars.
Makes sense.
We also attended a speed cubing competition in Veenendaal. This town deserves its own video someday, as it's often considered to be the best city for cycling in the Netherlands.
Really?
The exit to the train station is right at this nice cycling path.
How have I not heard this? I've watched like 250 some videos on the Netherlands and reacted to them on the channel, okay? How have I not heard about this? Veenendaal. I'm gonna have to check that out. Hold on, let me... All right, I typed it in on another tab so I can remember later. I'm going to check out a video about that for sure. Because I could have swore there was another place that was supposed to be the most cycling friendly. And I don't remember the name of the city or the town, village, whatever you call it. But I don't remember it being Veenendaal.
Path, and it connects directly to this pedestrianized shopping center. Totally accessible by foot or by bicycle without ever interacting with any cars at all. And this isn't even the main train station. This is the suburban station.
That hill was probably hell for the Dutch people to ride up because you guys have such a flat land. This is almost like a hill coming, like a ramp coming up out of that and under the building. It's like you're going to be getting out of breath by the time you get to the top of it, right? And I'm just joking, of course. You guys are like very fit, so used to riding the bike that I'd be the one getting out of breath, not you. You know what I mean?
Without ever interacting with any cars at all. And this isn't even the main train station. This is the suburban station in a place with only 65,000 people.
That's crazy.
I would absolutely never see this in Canada anywhere, never mind the suburbs of a small city. We took a vacation to Terschelling, an island in the North Sea. I was amazed that we could take a train directly to the ferry, and when we got to the island, we could rent e-bikes and cycle everywhere. We were even staying on a farm, like an actual rural farm, and it was still easily accessible by separated paths that were only used by bicycles and tractors.
That's crazy.
This country never ceases to amaze me.
You know, and I have a feeling that all these bike paths, the ones that connect city to city to city to city, you know, and little village to farming community to whatever, right? Like what he's talking about. It's probably just they've been there for hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of years. And it's just foot traffic trails, you know, just where people were walking, riding their horse, whatever, for hundreds of years, and eventually it just turned into bike paths and whatever that maybe roads and that connects the cities together. And it's just crazy how things evolve. It's just really cool to think about.
We went on vacation to a small camping area outside of Ulmen. Again, small town, 18,000 people. Obviously, a lot of people drive here, but there are still alternatives for walking and cycling. I drove around to take a look at the town and saw traffic calming everywhere. Look at the traffic calming on this main residential street. There is no way this would exist in a town this small in North America. This street would be wide and straight, high speed, and have lots of cars.
Yeah.
People would have signs on their lawns telling drivers to slow down, and nobody would let their kids out in the street.
Right.
It's just a totally different way to design a residential area. I was also surprised at how good the new road infrastructure was. You can see a very clear separation between streets and roads. There are no stroads here. For example,
he's got a whole video about stroads. Trust me. The whole video goes in depth. It's a good video. I did a reaction on it.
The businesses in this industrial area were accessible by streets separated from the main road, and accessible by roundabout. I talked about this in more detail in my video about stroads. Of course, there was a train station with a huge amount of bicycles outside of it. Again, this would just never exist in North America in a town this size. We also stayed at a campground near Diepenheim, and I had to drive there to buy groceries. I think this place surprised me the most because less than 3,000 people live here. And yet there were lovely houses on small streets, a traffic calming of course, and people of all ages cycling everywhere. What was even crazier was the time we ended up in Jutrijp. There was nice traffic calming everywhere, we saw lots of people cycling, but I really wanted to film this because
It was really windy. I bet that was a cold, windy day.
it's a great example of rural transit in the Netherlands. A bus stop with a bicycle rack so that people can cycle to the bus stop.
Ah, cool.
And this bus stop has buses that
In the middle of nowhere. There's not. I don't have bus stations. There's no bus stations in any of the towns that's close to me at all. Like I would have to drive like, I don't even know, half hour, 45-minute drive probably to go somewhere that has a bus station.
come every 12 minutes. And get this, for a village of 265 people. I know of cities
That's crazy.
1,000 times that size in Canada that have less frequent bus service.
Where I live, it's probably a village with maybe that many people, probably double, a little over. And the closest town to me has 6,000 people. And that's it.
We took our kids to the Bonami Computer Museum in Zwolle. This is on the edge of the city, about 4 kilometers from the train station, but it was still trivially easy and safe to get to by bicycle. The population of Zwolle is about 120,000 people. It was amazing to us how even these places in a random business park at the edge of a small town were still accessible to us with a train plus bicycle combination. I had never seen anything like this before. Also, the computer museum is amazing. You should go if you're nearby. We stayed for a few days at a campground near Assen, so I took a drive into town to check it out. Of course, I was able to easily pick up an Ove Fiets rental bicycle from the bicycle parking garage at the train station. I wanted to come here because David Hembro...
Those garages are nice, like those parking garages, and they're all over the Netherlands, it seems like. Super nice.
A British blogger who runs the blog A View from the Cycle Path lives in Assen and talks about it a lot. It was again an absolutely lovely small city, and it was really pleasant to walk around. And there were lots of nice residential neighborhoods all over. Of course, the cycling infrastructure was absolutely top-notch, despite it being a city of less than 70,000 people.
Is this Dutch?
One of the suburbs of Assen, called Kloosterveen, looked cool on the map, so I decided to cycle out there. Of course, it was always perfectly safe and comfortable, and there were many other people outside.
Hold on, what's it look like on the map? Oh yeah, that does look cool. It's just a full-on circle, huh?
Of course, it was always perfectly safe and comfortable, and there were many other people out cycling as well for all kinds of trips. I just couldn't believe how good a small city could be. Kloosterveen itself was also really nice despite it being a modern development. There was a mix of housing types, including single-family homes, and they were all connected by car-free walking and cycling paths. The crazy-looking circle thing was a pedestrianized center with underground parking and apartments, and all the shops you'd need on a regular basis.
Nice.
This proved to me once again that modern suburban neighborhoods don't have to be car-centric and crappy. I do think that Assen should have a tram line, though. Its public transportation is decent, but it's only buses.
I mean, that's still a lot better than what the hell I got here.
While we were driving back to Amsterdam, we wanted to stop at a grocery store, so we went to this random neighborhood called Vathorst outside of Amersfoort. Again, totally blown away. Look at this place.
Leiden.
This is as suburban as it gets, right off the highway, but there was a traffic calming, a nice little shopping area that's within walking distance of houses. I meant to come back to film this, but I never did. But it really shows that good urbanism is everywhere in the Netherlands, even in new developments. It's not just reserved for a handful of old neighborhoods in the biggest cities like it is in Canada. We decided to spend a few days in the town of Woerden because it looked nice.
I've heard of that one.
I'm
too.
starting to sound like a broken record here, but again, it was absolutely wonderful. There were pedestrianized streets all over the city center and lots of people out. There were modern developments that were extremely pleasant and
yeah, I mean, for a modern building,
lots of people
looks
out.
nice. Look at that. Hold on.
There were
Yeah, I mean, for a newer building, it's not too out there. You know, it's not like some stuff you'd see in like Rotterdam or whatever, right? It's still got a classic feel to it, but modern. It's nice. I like that.
modern developments that were extremely pleasant, and no giant stroads, no sprawling parking lots, and the train station was really nice too. It had a big outdoor parking lot for bicycles, as well as one indoors, and more on the other side too. And of course, regular train service, despite it being a town of about 50,000 people. Like, coming from Canada, this was crazy. A family friend came to visit us in the Netherlands. She had Dutch heritage, and we went to see some of her extended family. This brought us to Snake, an absolutely lovely old town of about 35,000 people. They lived in this pretty typical Dutch suburban neighborhood, and it was really nice. The row houses were well kept, the streets were safe and narrow, and there were lots of things within easy walking and cycling distance.
As is everywhere in the Netherlands, it seems.
Of course, there was this nice little train station with a ridiculous number of bicycles parked out front. The city center of Snake is pedestrianized, and it's a genuinely wonderful place to be. We went out on a boat and sailed through the canals. I just couldn't believe that a small town could be this nice. As a point of reference, this is what downtown looks like in a similarly sized city in Canada, and I always assumed that this is what all small towns were like. I could never...
That's what they all look like around here.
Have imagined that a small town can have a pedestrianized city center before coming to the Netherlands. And yet, they're everywhere here. We also visited her extended family in Alkmaar, a city with a population of about 100,000 people, and I was absolutely amazed. This was a neighborhood of single-family homes in a relatively small city, and yet it didn't have massively wide streets with high-speed cars. It was quiet and boring, just like a suburb is supposed to be, but it was also perfectly safe to walk and cycle. And it was directly connected to a local park with a network of separated bicycle paths that could take you anywhere else within the city. We saw so many kids out playing together and without any parents around. This is just a better way to design a suburb.
Yeah.
I was doing a contract in the town of Zeist, so I had to travel there every week. I'm going to make a full video about this because it was the nicest modern train station I think I've ever seen. Like, this is ridiculous, right? A town of 65,000 people in Canada wouldn't even have a train station anymore, never mind one that looked like this. This is just a small sample of the places we went to in our first few years in the Netherlands. There are many other places that...
You know, it makes you wonder, what are they doing with the money? in Canada, in the United States, because they're not doing what they should be. They're not putting it in infrastructure. They're not giving us public transportation. They're not giving us train stations and bus stops and all that stuff. What are they doing for us? Who knows? Who knows? They're lining their pockets with it, that's for sure. They don't even want to fill the damn potholes on the street half the time. It's insane. Sorry, rant over. We're going to finish this video.
That we've been to, and I've talked about many of them on this channel already. I have another YouTube channel where I live stream my bicycle rides, and these live streams show a totally unfiltered view of what it's like to cycle in the Netherlands. I started doing these rides because I wanted people to see what it's really like here in between the places I choose to film. And it's nice pretty much everywhere. And that's really what I want to make clear to people. Because what really struck me about going to all these random places, from industrial parks to suburban neighborhoods to small towns, was that none of them were bad. Sure, some places were better than others, and there are certainly lots of places that could benefit from better public transit. But I have yet to see any place in any city, town, or village in the Netherlands where I felt uncomfortable or unsafe to be outside of a car. And yet, when I think back to my time in Canada, I would go to places that I would call bad on a regular basis. And anytime I had to leave my neighborhood without driving, I just expected to feel unsafe several times.
Yeah.
And literally any time I had to go to a location in a suburb or a small town, I absolutely had to drive. And I was surrounded by garbage like this most of the time.
Yeah.
What's funny is that after a few years of living in the Netherlands, my idea of bad has shifted. For example, I absolutely hate Zeilstraat in Amsterdam, and I avoid it whenever possible. But in Canada, this would be considered one of the good places.
Yeah, right.
This is what motivates me to keep making videos on this channel. I want people to understand that I'm not just seeking out the best parts of the Netherlands to highlight while ignoring the bad parts. There are no bad parts. Or if there are, they're so few and far between that I haven't seen them. A great example is my video about this business park by the airport. I just could not believe that a business park by the airport could be easily transit accessible, safe for walking and cycling, and even nice looking. Or this random business park in Amsterdam with a beautiful two-way bicycle path running right through the middle of it. I spent huge parts of my life going to business parks in multiple US and Canadian cities, and they all sucked. All of them, without exception. I always assumed that's just what they were like, and yet, apparently, they don't have to be. And the same goes for small towns. I hated small towns in Canada. They always looked like garbage, with giant parking lots and a high-speed strode running right through the center of town.
Yeah.
And yet here...
Or multiple of them.
The small towns were lovely, and they were usually easily accessible by public transit. And they almost always had some kind of pedestrianized area. 5 years of living in the Netherlands has changed me forever. I can absolutely never go back to the life I had before. And the other great thing about living here for 5 years is that I'm allowed to apply for a Dutch passport, which is great.
I believe this is Utrecht because of the Rainbow Road, but I'm not sure because I think there's one in another place as well.
Because after traveling the world, I finally found the place I want to live, and I have absolutely no intention of ever going back.
Oh, yeah,
I'd like to thank my supporters on Nebula.
Heck yeah. So, it makes you wonder, like, they got all this bike-centric, cycling-centric areas in the Netherlands, right? But it wasn't always like that. In the 70s, early 70s, it was hell. There was cars crashing all over, and everybody was dying, car crashes and everything else, and they decided to change. Dial back the car-centric stuff and increase biking culture, walkability, all that. I mean, the walkability was already there, of course. They're old cities. It's Europe. But public transportation and cycling and all that kind of stuff, right? And they've done that since the 70s. So 50 some odd years, what have they been doing here? Nothing. Like, it's like, it just blows your mind. It just blows your mind that the drastic differences, it's just crazy. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Do me a favor, hit like and subscribe, and have a super fun, awesome day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, bye.